Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Money Matters Top Tips for Success, where each and every day I bring on new business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives and have them share their top tips for success with you. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at @AdamTorres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, moneymatterstoptips.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Mike Dunn on the line, and he's CTO over at Ultra. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be speaking with you.
So I'm excited to get more into what you're doing over at Ultra, but before we do that, let's get a little bit further into your background. So how did you get started in your career and in business?
Sure. I started as, back in the day, developers were called programmers, and we worked on sort of mid-range mainframe and early LAN systems. It was before the internet. Development was mostly what would be categorized as enterprise development today. I realized as I was going through my early part of my career that what I really liked is a balance between the product the company was creating and the technology that was used to create that product. And in the beginning, I got interested in, as systems got smaller, went from mainframe to mid-range systems to LAN distributed systems, and I could see potential and viability in that, and the ability for a technologist like myself to get more involved in the product. They weren't just engineers sitting in a back room, activating the systems for the business. We could get highly integrated with the business. So I think I started a trend in my career where I always looked towards what the next paradigm shift was going to be that leveraged technology. Probably the first big one was the internet. I got heavily involved in the internet as it was morphing out of ARPANET, and so there were some capabilities we could use in the roles I had at that point. When the web started, I got involved in that actually when it was still a server you could download, or not download, but get access to from CERN when Tim put that out there. I saw that as an alternative to the really cumbersome software solutions that were out there for companies that had distributed people and distributed systems. So I got heavily involved in the early days of the web, helped launch thousands of early websites. They were nothing compared to what we have today, but for the time, they were pretty revolutionary. And at that point, that's when I shifted from having titles like Director of IT or Vice President of IT or Vice President of Engineering or something like that to, or CIO, to Chief Technology Officer. And that title really was used by a lot of startups in the early days of the web. But for myself, when I was working for very big companies, it really was a way to differentiate between technology teams that were focused on technology that enabled the business and thus the products, and those that were running the systems behind the business. And there's people have had talked to me about various roles, CIOs, the difference between CIOs and CTOs, but that's the way I've always categorized them. Is CIO tends to be the systems that run the business, the back-end system, and CTOs tend to be a little closer to the edge and the product of the business. So I had multiple pretty good CTO roles in some pretty interesting companies, and I was able to be involved in the paradigm shift for how companies embrace e-commerce. So CTO at Dell, we launched the website there. The beginnings of the social web, so I was heavily involved in some fairly large media companies that were either investing in startups that were pushing Web 2.0 or the social web. And spent a lot of time working with startups as part of those big companies' strategic VC funds. I started when W3C was started. I did some work with them. I worked with the MIT Media Lab. So I went down this path of being a technologist, working on big, interesting projects for big companies, but then also working with smaller startups and advising and mentoring them, helping them get funding, helping advocate for them to get funding, and helping some of the standards bodies of the web and how technology is leveraged. I'm still involved with W3C. I work on the team that's pushing augmented reality and virtual reality as a standard. And I've gone back and forth on different things I've advocated for and worked within that area. So it was really I think most of my career has been looking at how things are changing, how can I be involved in where things are changing. Podcasting itself, just this medium, I got involved in when it first started. So I've been working with big companies and the folks that were trying to start podcasting in the beginning. So I've always sort of had an eye towards how technology is going to change things for the better and how I can be involved in it.
That's awesome.
So that's my background. So I would say predominantly, CTO and tending to do a lot of advising as I go.
So Mike, I noticed that in your career you mentioned this word multiple times, and that's paradigm shift. So there's some younger audience listening that are just getting started as technologists, or they're just getting out of college and they're kind of looking to find their way and their path. Obviously, you have the benefit of hindsight and multiple shifts of vision, we'll say. That being said, what do you think is interesting in terms of a space for that new college grad to explore that's kind of in your field?
When you decide, so I have a son who's also in the industry. He works for a big technology company as a development manager, and he got his career started by getting his master's in computer science. And one of the things I stressed is with him as he was growing up is if you enter into any technology field, you have to have the mindset that you're always going to be learning. So you learn something every day, every job, every interaction. You always have an eye towards what's coming, and that means you always have to be evaluating, researching, studying, and learning as you go, so that you can be adding value. I think there are probably people that learn one computer science approach and they stick with that for their career. But those days where you have a plethora of opportunities to do that are few and far between. I think it's all about learning how to learn and be involved in what's coming. I think today anything to do with data is going to be highly useful. So it could be big data, it could be deep learning, could be machine learning or AI, it could be blockchain, which is just the data construct, a different way to deal with data in a more decentralized manner. But that allows progress. Data is at the core of almost everything that's useful and dynamic in what we do from a web browser or mobile perspective. And so I think you can't go wrong by looking into that area of opportunities.
That's awesome. And so, Mike, I want to switch it up a bit. Let's get a little bit more into Ultra. So first, tell me a little bit more about the company, please.
So Ultra is a startup that initially is aimed at, it has multiple aspects to the project, multiple products, let's say, within the project. But Ultra Games is a disruptive product. It's meant to disrupt a highly centralized game distribution industry that at its forefront is Steam, which is, again, centralized and published by a major publisher. And so it's, I think our initial focus, if you think about that opportunity and you think about blockchain and cryptocurrency as something that can be disruptive in an established industry, Our primary goal is to be able to have the benefits of blockchain and cryptocurrency behind a digital distribution, game distribution environment that puts the developers and publishers first, and creates a nice balance between Ultra as a platform creator, the game developers and publishers as partners within that offering, and then creates a huge advantage for users where they're not just paying for access to games, but through our approach to blockchain and from a UX perspective or usability perspective, will allow them opportunities to leverage blockchain as they interact with the platform. So they're not just paying for a game, there's opportunities for them to create revenue for themselves in the process. So it's a nice balance between partners, platform, and users. That's sort of the broadest benefit of the potential for what some journalists call Web 3.0, but it's the decentralization of the web. So we see that as our first entry into this potential, and then we have other aspects, other products that are lined up that will take advantage of our blockchain and the platform that we're creating that will be launching over time.
Wow, I mean that it's pretty amazing. The gaming industry is just so big. So when I was kind of reading the bio on this on the company and what you do, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, it's a mix between a YouTube and I was trying to give like for my mind, because I'm not claiming to be a technologist, by the way, to think about like the different things that you're combining there to make that happen and to make it really a win-win scenario for the gamers, for the computer, or for the developers, and all across the board. So I see this as obviously as the model evolves and as it's tested and as the numbers change, I think it can possibly disrupt what's going on there and be a really significant force in gaming. Have you?
Yeah,
what kind of feedback have you heard, kind of just in the industry from this and what you're trying to pull off?
Positive. I mean, we have a number of investors already that are cryptocurrency-based investment methodologies. We're raising a Series A right now, so we'll use traditional fundraising for that. So we have very good interest. We recently announced, we have a number of partners, but we recently announced two major partners. One is AMD, their involvement with us as a partnership from a technology platform perspective. And then we announced our partnership with Ubisoft, and they will be joining us as one of our block producers in the network that supports our token and our blockchain cryptocurrency model. Block producers are partners that are part of the distributed network that you use to support token, and our token is a utility token, so it's based on leveraging functionality within the platform we produce. It's based off of a very, very popular altcoin or third-gen blockchain, EOS. We use that as our model, and then we modified it slightly, kept it compatible with EOS, but it's modified to meet our business needs. And so that's a common approach, especially in third gen cryptocurrency, to be able to get the exact approach you want from a protocol and smart contract perspective. So we did that, and our token is available on exchanges now. And then once our platform fully launches, we're in beta right now. Once it fully launches, then it'll be actively available for utilization within that platform.
Man, this is exciting. So, Mike, if somebody,
this
is exciting. So, somebody's listening to this and they do want more information on Ultra. What's the best way for them to reach out?
To just get general information about the company, if you go to ultra.io, there's information there on the site. There's links to our Telegram channel, which is very, very active, and we have community managers that are monitoring that, can interact and get information to members of the management team. You can always connect with me on LinkedIn. That's a fairly easy path. I think and look for really good big things, more partnership announcements, and more progression on the launch of our platform coming in 2020.
Man, that's awesome. Well, and we're going to have you back on the show once everything's live and up, because I want some updates. So I'm excited for that, Mike. I just want to thank you for coming on the show today and share more about your background and all the great work you're doing over at Ultra to change gaming. I love it. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review on the Apple iTunes Store, do all those great things we do to support our podcasters. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot to me. And Mike, thanks again for coming on.